Monday, everyone, and welcome. Thank you guys so much for joining us for this very special roundtable episode with the experts in all things cat care. And today is a very special episode because by high demand, we are going to be sharing with you guys all of our different perspectives on how to transition your cats to a fresh food diet. I wanted to wear my shirt today that I can't find. It says like, what animal cooks their food?
Humans. Yes.
Well said. Oh my God, you guys. So I want to do this. I know everyone pretty much knows all of us, but let's do a quick intro. But I also want you to share how many cats you have so that when we start talking about this, people understand what we're dealing with. Dr. Katie Woodley, let's start with you, my dear.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. I'm so excited for everyone to be here and to be back with this amazing group of women. And so I'm Dr. Katie Woodley, the natural pet doctor. I'm a holistic integrative veterinarian in the Northern Colorado region who's on a mission to make sure that you, as the amazing pet parents that you are, feel empowered and supported with the tools, knowledge, and education to help your cats. And if you have dogs too, this can apply to them, live their best and longest lives. So I have currently 3 black panthers, or kitty cats, not real panthers, don't worry. And one is blending into the ripple rug behind me. Another is behind me. You can see his little ears over the thing. And then the third one will probably make an appearance at some point. So we've ranged in ages from senior cats all the way to younger ones. We'll talk more about getting them as like a kitten and then also changing over senior rescue adopted kitties from a kibble addiction to a raw food diet. So that's my current situation at this time. 3 kitties.
I love it. I love it. Julianne Thorne, tell us a little bit about you.
And
hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us. I just love getting together with these wonderful ladies, and I know that we are all passionate about giving cats a voice. That's my mission, and helping people like all the pet parents here to learn about how to help their cats. So I currently have 2 boys, Leo and baby Max, who even when he's older, talk of the devil, will be called baby Max. Hang on, my window's open. That's why he's here with me. Come and say hello, little one.
Baby Max.
Say hi.
Oh, buddy.
So we've had Max since he was 6 months old, and he was on dry food and wet food at the rescue centre. So we are currently in the midst of transition. So we've got some great stories. Yeah. And no.
Up to the top.
Had this last time. He jumps up on the top. Just 1 second.
Pam Roussel with Perfectly Holistic. Tell us a little bit about you and your babies.
I'm so excited to be here, and thank you guys for tuning in and watching this show. I hope it's going to really resonate with a lot of people. I am the founder and CEO of Perfectly Holistic, and my mission is basically helping cat parents find holistic ways to help their cats. And so I currently have 2 kitties. We were up to 6 at one point, and we've been going through attrition. And so I have 2 at the moment. One is 14 and one is 7.
So
I don't think I realized there was such an age.
I don't think I did either.
I know. I had to stop and think how old Gunnar is because they just had birthdays in July and June. So yeah.
Wow. See, and I'm so excited about this because for those of you guys, first of all, for those of you guys that don't know us, my name's Jay.
My name is Adrian.
And together we are the 2 crazy cat ladies. And we currently have 6 cats. Age ranges from 2 years old to 18 years old. And aside from that, I'm really excited because we don't even know the stories of how you guys transition. And here's the thing, when it comes to getting our cats on a better diet, we'll talk about why that's so important. But the transition is always the hardest part for cat parents specifically, right? Once you know better, you want to do better. If you have a dog, that usually is fairly easy to switch them over to a better diet, to a fresher diet, right? But when it comes to our kitties specifically, it's really, it can be a challenge. And 9 times out of 10, it's the pet parent, it's the cat parent that ends up giving up before the cat. And so like getting to know all of your different ways and like tricks and the ways that you guys did the transition or are doing the transition to a fresh food diet is going to be really exciting, because I know every one of our cats and every one of our steps have probably been quite a bit different, just a little bit different from each other. So, yay. Let's talk about why. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say where we want to start. I'm so excited about this, but I do think, Jay mentioned that this is like the most challenging thing. And so I'm excited to hear your stories too, because I think that we have in our minds as cat parents that it's just too daunting, right? When in fact, it really is it really depends on the cat in a lot of what their current health condition is, how young they are, how old they are even. It's such an individual experience for each cat. So
yes.
Do we want to start with why what we feed is
so important?
Yeah. And I think all of us are transitioning. All of us are fresh feeders or raw feeders. Is that true?
Yeah, for the most part.
Yep.
Okay. So, but the transitioning diets, whether we're going from a kibble to a wet food, or a wet food to a gently cooked food, or a freeze dried food, or a raw food, whatever it is, it's for us, it's very important. Diet is so foundational, right, for our overall health. So getting them on a good diet is really important. The best diet that we can afford, the best diet that we can give our cats to let them live the longest and healthiest and happiest life possible, right? So, Dr. Katie, I want to start with you as far as like, I know you are like adamant about diet, and that's why we fell in love with you from the beginning, but talk a little bit about cats specifically and why feeding a better diet is so important.
Yeah. And I want to, you mentioned something too, just a few things ago, that I want everyone here to like hear again, because it's so easily missed. And there's a lot of fear, but also guilt around transitioning diets. Remember, if you're only doing like a small thing, or you're using a topper, or you're able to use like some of these fresh food diets we're going to talk about, some of the time, and maybe you can't get it all the time, I want you to know it's making a difference. So don't be really hard on yourself, because it makes a huge difference. And there's a lot of studies now that show that fresh food diets, even just a small amount, even like whole food toppers on top of a processed kibble, make a difference. So I just wanted to emphasize that, because it can be really frustrating with some cats. Some cats are super easy, and other cats will test your patience and your limits. So let's go back to like, why is this so important? And unfortunately, the vet industry is based around feeding processed food diets that come out of a bag. And there's a lot of fear mongering amongst veterinarians and cat parents and pet parents in general. And the reason why is because we're taught in vet school, this is what is the best diet, the most balanced. So there's a lot of concern over if we change, are we going to get sick if we feed a raw food diet? Are our pets going to get sick? Are we going to cause imbalances long term? I promise you, you're not, when we do it appropriately. And the reason why fresh food diet, so when I say fresh food, I mean least processed. So kibble is the most processed. Then we have things like canned food. Then we have freeze-dried raws. We have dehydrated foods. And then we have the commercial pre-made raws. And then a lot of people do like lightly home-cooked food or completely raw diets. So that's kind of the gradient of foods that you can see. Now, the reason why fresh food diets are so important are for a number of reasons. They are less processed. There's less chemicals. There's less inflammatory ingredients. With kibble diets, they're cooked at over 200 degrees Celsius. And what happens when we cook foods at really high heat temperatures, they form things like advanced glycation end products, heterocyclic amines. What does that mean, right? Most people have no idea what that is. So think about like if you were to take a steak and you put it on the barbecue and you grill the heck out of it. If you overcook it, what do you see? You see that char, that black char, right? We don't want to eat that. For one, it doesn't taste very good. Secondarily, it has carcinogenics, things that can cause cancer. Those are your heterocyclic amines. That's what's being produced in pet foods, and we can actually test that. We don't want that going into our cats' bodies, because it increases the level of chronic inflammation, oxidative stress, and chronic inflammation long-term leads to health conditions like diabetes, obesity, cancer, autoimmune diseases, inflammatory bowel disease. So that's number one, the chemicals, inflammation. We don't want that. Number two, fresh foods are going to be better absorbed in the body than synthetic vitamins and minerals. It's the same for us. If you think about, oh, I take a multivitamin every day, but it's synthetic. Our bodies are like, well, this is foreign. It's not the whole food that we're taking in. And so when we add in fresh food, the body, the microbiome, the good bacteria in the gut go, yes, I know what this is. We also get the synergistic properties of that food where the body now knows, okay, this is going to be broken down into vitamins, whole food vitamin C, B vitamins, so like nutritional yeast, and like there's all sorts of different things that are going to be better for your cats long term, and it's going to support their overall health, their immune system, providing good prebiotics to feed the microbiome, the good bacteria, and it's going to be much better than giving a synthetic vitamin mineral, which is what kibble and processed food diets are. That's why when you look at the ingredient list, you'll see all those synthetic chemicals and you're like, I don't even know what this is. I can't even pronunciate it. I can't even read out some of those names. That's what those are. And they're in there because there's not enough whole food, organ meat, the beautiful organ meats, right, that are nature's vitamin for your cat to digest, break down, and actually support optimal health. So I'd say those are the two biggest things, kind of with a little few other factors that are in there for feeding fresh food diets. They're going to truly help your cat, and why I always advocate for fresh food versus a processed food diet.
That is literally one of the best explanations, I think, ever. I just want to clip that whole part and put it out as a separate video for everyone. That was beautiful. I want to give a shout out to Flappy Cats real quick, because they said if you want to transition your cat to a raw diet, just ask for Pam's miracle help. I love that. So Pam, maybe we start with you as far as what is the journey, and share a little bit about what inspired you or motivated you to switch your cats to a fresh food diet. And I'm sure you're going to share some of the tips and tricks you shared with Flappy Cats.
No, it's true. So we have to go back many years ago to probably around, I want to say 2000, maybe 2010-ish, 2012, something like that. And I was learning more about, actually before that, I was having health issues with a couple of my cats. And so they were eating like I'm going to air quote, high quality dry food, right? Organic, blah, blah, blah. And I thought I was doing the right thing because I had always fed dry food. That's what I saw my parents feed their cats. And so it's something that you learn by what you're shown, right? What you grow up doing. And so I thought I was doing a good thing. I had a couple cats pass away. They were a little older, but kidney failure. And I didn't really understand the connection between the dry food and the kidney failure, very well. So that was kind of an eye-opening, like, okay, I need to do better than that. So I started feeding them canned food. Now, I had 6 cats at the time, and that can be very expensive to start feeding all wet food, right? So I was a little slow in the transition. One of the cats had, like they call it a feline, not asthma, but like a kitty bronchitis. He was diagnosed with a kitty bronchitis, and he always had this, he was always coughing. And the vet showed me on the x-ray, weight thing, when they turn the light on and look at the x-ray, the chest and everything, and look at his lungs, and it had all these it looked like little dots, it just looked like this stuff in there. And like, that's the problem. And I said, well, what's the cure? And he said, oh, it can't be cured. We just manage it. And I'm like, there's a cure. You just don't know what it is. So I went home after losing my second cat to kidney disease. I threw out the dry food. I literally came home and said, you know what? I'm done. I threw it in the trash, and we're just going to eat, the wet food. And then probably around that same time was when Snow Bear had the all the time. And I took him off the dry food. Within 3 days, his coughing stopped.
Wow.
I want to say about a 95% improvement within days.
Wow.
That was like a real aha moment for me. And then I had a very good friend of mine that I used to work with, that I'm still good friends with, and she had transitioned her cats to raw food and was was buying, some commercial raw and good quality stuff. And she had been working with a holistic vet who was very much, raw diet. And she kept saying, you got to transition. You got to move them to raw. You got to move them to raw. And I'm like, I'm looking at my budget going, how am I going to afford to feed raw to 6 cats? It's, because, and again, it's a mindset. How can I do this? And I was spending God knows how much on canned food. Hadn't done the math, okay? But I assumed it was going to be more expensive to buy the raw food than the canned food. Okay, so when there came a point when I started mixing in some raw into their canned food. And so that was my first step. And some of the cats immediately took to it, had no issues. And the older cats were a little bit more like, what is this? So, and honestly, I didn't push probably as much as I should have, but I got the younger ones on the raw food. And I remember bringing Aylin home the day that I adopted her, and the people sent me home with a bag of Royal Canin kibble because that was one of the foods that they were given, blah, blah, blah. And I just put it in the trash can. I'm like, you're not eating that. And I scooped out the dinner for, which was raw duck. I think it was duck or quail or something. That's probably duck. And I put the stuff in her bowl, and she is howling on the floor going like she's never going to get fed. I just put it down and said, you're going to eat raw now. And she gobbled that thing up like it was nobody's business. And I'm like, well, that was easy. And she was 3 months old. So it does make a difference when you start younger. Yeah. And then, over the years, I've just kind of been trying different brands and seeing what they tend to like. And right now we are on raw plus some freeze dried that we rehydrate depending on their moods, what emotional things they're going through at the time, and if they want raw that day or if they need some freeze dried. But I keep some canned on hand just for emergencies, but it stays in the back of the closet, and I'm just like, no, you're not eating that. So, but yeah, one of the things that I have learned to do through my energy work and clearing is to remove the sugar addiction block. So cats who are addicted to dry food and don't even want to look at wet food and snub their nose up to, and go, that's not my food. Just identifying sugar as a stressor and clearing that with the taste buds and the gustatory cortex and the emotion obsession and a block to wet food. If I can bundle all of that and clear that together, the cat will be open to start eating the wet food. And I've had client after client after client this is worked on, like, and they're blown away. They're like, holy cow, my cat would never even look at wet food, and now she's eating wet food. And it wasn't hard. It was just like within a day they's like, oh. And so I give them some tips here and there on, if you have to crumble a little of the dry or whatever on top to help that transition, but it makes it so easy.
Yeah, well, and it's a good point as far as like switching over to a wet food diet, and that's how that's our first step. Is we went from dry to wet food, and then from wet food to a fresh food diet.
But I also think we kind of covered up something that is a big reality that a lot of people deal with, is that cats are, it's not an air quote thing, addicted. It is an actual, it is, you kind of shift your mindset into dealing with, to really recognizing that this is what they're going through. I mean, the work that you do is so, I wish that we had you back in the day, but that is a real thing.
And I forgot to say that I have to clear it with opioid receptor sites in the brain, because that's where the sugar, like, even for people, we have the opioid receptor site in our brain, and we eat certain foods or whatever. It gives us that warm and fuzzy feeling. And cats are the same with the dry food addicts, so the opioid receptor site is an important part of that clearing process.
So To explain just briefly too, a little bit more of that science side of the kibble. Kibble is high carbohydrates. In order to make kibble, it has to be over 50 to 60% carbohydrates. Cats have zero physiological need for carbs. They don't need carbs. They operate very well off proteins and fats. So when we feed them carbohydrates, what happens is they're not able to process it. It actually creates insulin resistance. So you end up with that sugar overload, which is what Pam is talking about with stimulating opioid receptors. And on the human side, they found that sugar itself is more addictive than using cocaine. It lights up the same brain receptors and parts of the brain that using hardcore drugs does. That's why getting rid of sugar is so difficult. But this also too, I'm seeing some comments, and this is a common mistake that's made when we shift to fresh food. And I know we'll get to Julianne in a sec. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. But the concern that I see and the problem, the mistake I see too, is that when we're talking about raw or fresh food, we are not talking about putting down a piece of meat and having your cat eat that. So there's some concerns I'm seeing about feeding like bones. A lot of these commercial pre-made foods, most of them, are already broken down. They're a minced version. So you're not going to have the full like bone that they're chewing on, like a chicken wing or something like that. So you're not going to have that to worry about your cats becoming obstructed. The other thing too is we don't want to remove bones. There has to be a source of calcium to balance it. So important. I see so many like cat patients where there's no calcium in the diet. It's an unbalanced diet. And that's why they have diarrhea. Bone is what also helps form the stool. So if we don't have enough calcium or we have too much, that's where we can see constipation or diarrhea. The other piece is there needs to be some form of vitamins and minerals. So typically, ideally, that's going to be organs, a combination of organs, a lot of times 5%. Or a little bit less for cats, depending on what ratios you're using, what the company's formulating with. There has to be organs in it or synthetic vitamins and minerals. Otherwise, if you're only feeding meat and bone, you will cause health issues down the road. Usually it's not right away. It's down the road, which complicates things, especially if your cats do have current health conditions. So I just wanted to jump in and state that really quick, because I do not want people to come away from this talk and just like put meat down or a mince and like feed that to their cats and like feel like you are feeding a fresh food diet. There's more to that. And that's where using some of these pre-made commercial foods can be really helpful in that transition over. Okay.
Yeah. Balance is so important. Now, adding a little bit of that fresh meat or that fresh food into an already balanced canned food diet or kibble diet or something like that is a different story. And that's where Dr. Katie was talking about earlier about just adding a little bit and doing a little bit.
Less than 20%.
Yeah. But I want to get real quick, because I think this is going to add a lot of value to the audience here. Back to Pam, as far as we didn't follow up on the cost. So you were giving your cats a canned food diet, and you thought it was going to be much more expensive. What did you find when you switched over to a raw food diet? And I know
break it down,
break it down.
Basically, they don't have to eat as much food because they're absorbing more of their nutrition. So there's less waste, that you would find in a processed food. And it's more nourishing. And so what I'm feeding now with the raw and the freeze-dried tends to last very like 2 to 4 weeks, depending on the bag or, whatever it is. And I'm rotating through several at a time, but it's like, I haven't done like the calculations recently, but when I went to the store to buy a bunch of canned food a while, like months ago, I didn't come out with very many cans, and it was well over $75.
Yeah.
And a bag of frozen kibble might be 27, 33 that would last, 2 to 4 weeks. And those cans would be gone in like, a month.
Yeah.
Or less. It was probably much less time if I was feeding that, it was like, what?
Yes. I want to make that really clear, because we did the math ourselves, but somebody else actually did it years ago, back when we were transitioning ourselves, as far as like canned food, like a good quality canned food versus a raw food diet. and it is actually way more expensive to feed a good quality canned food over a raw food diet for all the reasons that you just said, because they don't need to eat as much. The body absorbs a whole lot more. Those poops are awesome.
Those poops are awesome.
They're tiny.
Beautiful. I mean, I love their poops. I also do want to say a great comment here. And for people dropping questions, once we get through the roundtable, if we've got some time left, we'll go back and address some of these questions as well. But as far as the cost too, I think this is a super valid point that we've really realized as well, is that, that kind of like mean cliche of you either pay for it now, you pay for it later. Switching to a species appropriate diet that feeds their bodies the way they are meant to really biologically absorb, it does end up saving on some of these really catastrophic vet bills.
Use your words.
Vet bills. Sorry, guys. It's an early
Yes.
Monday.
Completely.
So let's get to Julianne, because I'm very
yeah.
excited for the fact that you're actually going through the transition right now. You're going to offer so much value to the audience, because you're going to be able to connect on a right here basis. So tell us about your experience right now and in the past, and just tell us everything.
Passing me the mic, I love it. So everything you guys have said, I'm just sat here like, yes, and it makes such a big difference. One of the things we alluded to at the beginning, like, a species appropriate diet for cats. They are carnivores. They have no need for carbs. That being said, there are days when that's all they'll eat. And you know what? We have to find a bit of compassion in ourselves. So, this round table is all about, how to transition your cat. And I'm going to share with you what we're doing with baby Max at the minute. But I have to say, there are days when I want to cry. There are days when, it is really stressful. And other days when it goes swimmingly and I'm like dancing around the front room, and that's part of the journey. Like, if you are in the middle of transition now, or if you're thinking about it, find a little compassion before you do anything else, for yourself. I hate this word. It is a journey. It is a road, that we're going down with them, and having some patience as well. So the last few days we've binned a bit of food, and it's been really painful, right? We've ditched wet food. We've ditched raw food because baby Max is, he's having a bit of a wonky couple of days. So when we got him from the rescue center, he was free fed dry food. They gave him the wet occasionally, but very poor quality. So nice and cheap, right? Great. It's cheap, but it's nutritionally terrible.
Mm-hmm.
So not only is the dry food kind of bad for him, the wet food's it's like just a wet version, literally, like it's still just as crappy. So we started by giving him the same dry. There, I'm going to say it. I am pro raw. I am a raw feeding veterinary society affiliate. Do you know what I mean? But we fed dry. We do occasionally feed dry, and we did the 2-plate method. So I basically, me peeps, my mission is giving cats a choice. So by giving them a voice, which is by giving them a choice. I say I need a glass of wine. And so I use the 2-plate method, and I put down his current food or previous food and the new food. And part of that is because, yes, baby Max is young, but he's also cautious. He's in a new environment and he's trying to suss things out. So we put the 2 plates down together for a little bit, and, occasionally he would sniff at them. I hate to say it, the one thing that got him into raw was Leo brought home a teeny tiny dead animal, and I offered it to baby Max to see what he would do with it, and he played with it. And then the next meal he ate of raw, he just absolutely cleaned the plate. Now, whether that instigated an instinct in him, whether that, ignited something in him, a drive, a response, I don't know. And I thought we'd cracked it. I was like, yes, we're on to raw. No more wet, no more dry. Banish it from my house. But no. So the last few weeks, he has been really picky. Yesterday, just before we came on the live, I put some wet food down the toilet and I put a plate of raw food down the toilet because I've been putting it down. I've tried toppers. I've tried different places, and he's not eating it. And I can't have a cat that doesn't eat. Leo last year before, was in the vets for 4 nights with feline anorexia, so I have anxiety around that. I have emotional energy around that. So if one of my boys goes up to a bowl of food and walks away, my stress levels go up, and then just keep going up until I hear someone eating their food, and I'm like, I can breathe now, my baby's eaten. So with baby Max today, how did I get him to eat? I found a brand of food in the freezer that he's never really been keen on. And I thought, you know what? We've not tried this for a few days. Defrosted it. It's a commercially made raw. I don't have the capacity to make my own. And anyone that does, complete respect to you. Totally respect you for that. And he cleaned the plate. And I was like, oh, buddy, yes, we've solved it. But, you know, later on, he wouldn't go near it. So it's an up and down battle at the minute. And what I would say is we have changed where he eats, which we've got to give him a chance to adjust to. Max likes heights. Everything with him is heights. He sleeps in a shelf bed. He always jumps over on top of Leo. Everything is height. He sleeps up on the sofa. So we've put his food station. It was on like a little stool, an ottoman. We call it here in the UK. I don't know if you call it that in the US. Yes. He put his bottom on the ottoman, as we say, and we've now put it higher, so he's on a higher shelf. See if that will help, because, you know, as you said, ladies, you've got to consider the individual needs of the cat, you know, and every cat is different. With Leo, he was transitioned in about 3 months, you know, and we very rarely had backward steps. Our raw journey really began because Pickle was diabetic. We free fed dry food. Like you said, you know, some of our parents do it. When did we think that like dry food was the right thing to feed cats? Like, when was this time in history from like the Victorians using cats as mouses or whatever to like, you know, this period of bringing in dry food, thinking that's the way to do it? But that's what I did. We free fed her dry food. She became diabetic. We couldn't get her insulin and diabetes under control. I realized that I was doing one of the worst things for her. Like Dr. Katie said, you know, the insulin, the dry food, the chemicals, the carbs, you know, it was heartbreaking. And it's still a journey, you know. Pickle, that was 13 years ago. And I'm here still 13 years later, still on a raw, you know, on a transition journey, you know. So what I would say, like, we're giving people hints and tips, right? We're talking about how to do it. I would say, like, go from, as I think you mentioned, Jay, you know, go from dry to wet to raw, and a bit of freeze dried in between, you know, because cats are neophilic, most of them. They don't like change. They're wired to sense threats and, you know, differences in their environment. So one of the tools that we found really helpful is that we found a treat the boys like. And when I say treat, I mean, like, it's freeze dried. It's only a treat because it's not marketed as an actual food. You know, it's a piece of freeze-dried chicken, you know, and you can crumble it up. So we found a treat they like, and we use that. So when the boys aren't eating, that gets sprinkled on top. And generally it helps them to eat, but it also helps them to go from different brands, different flavors, different textures, you know. So wherever you are on your journey, everybody, you know, what's the next step you can do? Are you at completely dry? Where can you bring in somewhere? Are you sort of half and half? Can you make it sort of 60-40? You know, where can you, like Katie said, make those one small changes and see what you can do to support them, you know, and just be patient, because it doesn't happen very rarely overnight. Yes. I did have one client say to me, I suggested raw food, and then she texted me 24 hours later and was like, he's eaten it and he's not looking back, and he's never looked back since. I'm like, how did you do that? Like, how I've never experienced that ever, but it is possible. Some cats will do it. So you just it's dependent on your own cat.
Yeah, it is an individual. When you, on an individual basis, and when you have several cats, it's very interesting to see the different types of personalities, and to take each one at their own pace. The best advice that you just gave, and I think probably for the entire live, is to be patient, because that is the key. I think it's the key to transitioning any diet is being patient with your cat, but also being persistent with the transition, right? And that may take years. It may take for us. For us, we started 6 years ago or something. No, I don't know. I don't even know what year it is or day, but but when we started, it was because of our cat Scotch, who was diagnosed with kidney disease, elevated kidney levels. He was still stage 1, but it was like, okay, this is the time. We'd already been doing the research. We'd already learned a whole lot. We thought about it. I like studied for a year on how to make it ourselves, because we was like, we're not going to be able to afford this. So I was like studying, never could trust myself. And it was finally like, no, we're just going to do it. We're going to do this. She thought I was going to kill the cats. I was like, I'm going to help them live longer. I'm going to do it. So we got a commercially prepared raw diet for our cats. And we did the transition. So Scotch, who was our oldest at the time, he was 18 years old. He took to it immediately. He was like, yes, this is exactly what my body needs. Our youngest at the time was Pooh Bear. And he was a kibble addict, and he was a no. And it took us 6 months of consistently a little bit here, maybe a little bit there. Okay, if you won't eat that, then fine, we'll give you this. But next time we'll just add a little bit beside it. We'll add a little bit inside. See, like if we can slowly get this over to a raw food diet, a fresh food diet. And I have to be honest, we have one cat that is like a purist through and through. Zorro. He will not touch any processed foods. You put processed foods. He is like, no, that is not my food. Only raw, only raw. And so I was having to make everybody's food separately of the 6 cats or whatnot for a while, up until the pandemic hit, because the rest of them would not eat raw by themselves. So we were always still mixing some wet food in, and we would get a little bit less and a little bit less until they would stop, and then we would add some more. But we always had the raw with the canned food in their diet until the pandemic hit. And we were like, all the stores shut down. We were like, we don't have any wet food left. What are we going to do? I have no idea. And we have been doing it for years, pretty much. And so I just took it out, and everybody started taking to it immediately. It was like, oh, I could have taken this out a long time ago, saved myself some money. But everybody took to it. And then there is, like variety in the diet is very important too. Variety in the different proteins. And so we feed our cats a ton of different proteins, but they don't like all of them. So we also, like Julianne, we use food toppers. Ours love the green juju. They all want a different flavor of the green juju. Whenever it's a diet that they're not, or a protein that they're not necessarily interested in, we just put the little topper on top and watch them dive in. So yeah.
Nice.
But I do want to, before we kick it over to Dr. Katie for your transition story with your babies, I do want to say, Julianne, something that you pointed out, which is so important. And, it is about having patience and giving that 2-plate method. I've never that put together that way, but that's so brilliant, because sometimes cats their sense of smell is so strong that there's something new. So important to give them that option on that self-selection that we've learned so much from you about. A choice, right? Very important. But patience is so key. Understanding our cats, taking it at their pace. But the compassion element of this is so huge, because we have to be compassionate with ourselves, not feeling like we're a failure if we take a step back, or if our cat refuses to eat. Be compassionate to our cat, who is literally dealing with, if we're going straight from kibble, literally dealing with an addiction. And if we look at it from that perspective, it gives so much more compassion, but also for ourselves to be able to take it at whatever pace our own situation or budget allows. So I think that was
Absolutely
really profound point.
Yeah, I said that to a client of mine. I said, you're taking your cat from eating McDonald's every day, every meal, to green juices. That's not going to happen overnight. Their gut biome needs to adjust. Their digestion needs to adjust. Their sense of smell, the flavors, the textures in their mouth, all of that needs to change. And you've got to have patience while they do that, which is why we've done the 2-plate method. And then after a couple of days, couple of weeks, we then start to do exactly what you guys have done. Put a teaspoon in, a half a teaspoon, and mix it in and slowly transition it, just to help them kind of deal with that change. So, compassion is really the key. Dr. Katie, go on, my love.
So one of the things too, alongside that, what you just said, Julianne, is, and what can make it really hard to transition for cats, is the texture. They also forget what real food is. There's actually studies that they've taken feral cat colonies and they fed them dry food from the very beginning, so kittens, and they found that they had a food preference later on in life for that specific food when they allowed self-selection. So once again, be kind to yourself. You may be battling that. Now, my journey started probably about 6 years ago, back in, oh my goodness, 6, 7 years ago, with my 2 other cats that are no longer with us, when one of them developed aggressive GI lymphoma. And I was like, we got to get rid of it. We were on kibble. I was doing, what a lot of vets do, right? That's what I thought was the best, and realized, wow, there's a problem here. And he actually preferred, my Stanley cat, he preferred the raw food diet. He went straight to it from a kibble. He did get some canned, but he went straight to and preferred only the raw. And then, of course, my other cat, Callie, at the time, we just changed her over to a raw food diet also. So we used a pre-made raw. We used Darwin's for people who are in the States, which is a brand I recommend and like, one of the many. And they did okay. They both passed away from aggressive GI lymphoma. But I know at least with Callie, it probably helped because the little things add up. So now, fast forward with the current cats. So the first cat we got was Moki as a kitten. He has a cerebellar hypoplasia. He's our special needs cat who's living a beautiful life and does just fine. He's just very entertaining. But he came to us on a prescription dry food GI diet. He had been treated for upper respiratory infections, multiple rounds of antibiotics, got all the vaccines, was neutered at like probably 4 weeks old. As soon as little testicles dropped, they took him away. And so he was a feral cat that was rescued and then fostered out. And he also, like, they told us, here you go. He's going to be on prescription food for the rest of his life. And I said, okay, right. I kind of like laughed. I was like, just watch me. And so took him home, and it was hard. I mean, this poor kitten, he was under our bed for an entire week. When it come out, that first week we got him, terrified. He would only eat when I would leave, and I would just lay on the ground and just sit there and read. And eventually a week later, he found that it was safe and came out. So we started transitioning him to, I did what Julianne mentioned, both raw and canned at the same time, and offered those. We had some of the kibble that he was on, but what I also did, and this is for a lot of the cat parents here who have GI issues, we need to support digestion. And so if you have loose stool, if you have IBD, this is where digestive enzymes can be really, really helpful. Using nutraceuticals like slippery elm. And there's a lot of great brands and products out there, but we have to calm down the inflammation and support the microbiome alongside that transition to help them. Yes, transitioning the diet can make a huge difference. And you've probably heard of a lot of stories where that transition alone is what solidified the stool or got them over the diarrhea or the vomiting, GI upset. But I always recommend that. And that's exactly what we did with Moki. And now he's like a raw fiend. Now, here's the other piece to this. Each cat's an individual. And there's days he loves his rabbit. There's days he likes his chicken. There's days he likes his he can't eat lamb. He definitely has a food sensitivity to lamb and will vomit immediately. We've done tests. He has leaky gut, which we're working on. But you can also look at your cats and look at, like, are they wild and crazy? What's their personality? Do they sit on the heater vent? Do they tend to run cold? Or are they like, avoiding the sun and hanging out in like the shade all the time, laying on like the cool tiles or the hardwood? Looking at your cat from that perspective, then you can bring in the energetics of food. Kibble is very warming. And so that's also why it's inflammatory. And for these cats that have food allergies, food sensitivities, IBD, those tend to be hot diseases. So if we're feeding hot proteins, hot food energetically, that can make them worse. So that's something I'm always looking at with my cats. Now, Tico, who's our latest kitty that came to us, he was the easiest. He was outdoors. I know he was eating rabbits. He's got it. He loves his rabbit in more ways than one. And so he went straight to a raw food diet. We went through a bout where we actually thought he had cancer right a week after we got him, and he had severe GI upset. So during that time, we went to a little bit more processed food because the raw was making it worse. Very cooling energetically. He needed something that was like kind of a little bit pre-digested. So during that transition period, we used can, and then we supported his gut health, supported his immune system, got him through it. And then now he's on raw again. And sometimes we have to use that, the freeze-dried chicken. It's perfect. It's really great. Churros are another godsend for cats where you can add that in. Also like organic meat baby food. Mixing those things in can make a big difference. We also use freeze-dried like tripe, Meow brand. It's a New Zealand brand that you can get in the US. They have some freeze-dried green-lip mussels. My Kiwi cat, who I'll talk about next, who's my pain in the butt cat, she loves it when we sprinkle the freeze-dried green-lip mussels on there. Like she loves it, and it's high in zinc, and that's so important for immune system and gut health. And so Kiwi, we got her right after we lost our German Shepherd Finn to cancer a few years back. She was 10 years old, kibble addict. She was on a prescription diet too, GI, because why not? And brought her in. I was like, no, you're getting off this. She was a pain. She's my one that has helped me with like the patience in the household. And so for her, we allow self-selection for all of them, but especially for her because she's our picky cat. And she's got, some kidney value elevations too. So like the biggest thing for her is making sure that we're feeding a selection of good quality cans. So no carrageenan. I saw people talking about that increases inflammation, GI upset. So reading those ingredient lists, but also too, making sure that she can self-select chicken or like a raw food. She likes chicken. She's our cold cat. Chicken is warming. So it makes sense energetically. Also too, she loves freeze-dried. So one of the things that's been really helpful in our transition for her is using something that's kind of like the same texture as kibble. So freeze-dried is a great option. Yes, it says on the bag to put water in it. Use it dry because it's going to be 2 million times better than a kibble, even if they're eating it dry. But you can crumble it on top of the kibble and then offer a bowl of that and then help transition over and then offer the other options for them too. And then see if adding in water will help them transition to a moisture rich diet. But the texture sometimes with those, I find some cats just don't like the freeze dried with the water in it, but that's how we approach it with Kiwi. So every cat in our household is very different. And each day, like Julianne said, it can be different. And sometimes like Tico won't want to eat in the morning, or I just give him like half of the dose or the amount that it says that he normally gets. And then I know he eats later. And during the day, I'll give him like species appropriate treats like freeze-dried heart and some other, things like that, where he's still getting the nutrients if he hasn't eaten his breakfast. The other piece to this too, which is not as fun as putting down dry and just having it be there, is you have to set up meal times. So that's key, that you have to do that. You have to like put down the food, leave it down for a little period of time, and then remove it. And if you have kibble in the household, put it in the garage or put it in the freezer, because if your cat smells it, they will hold out on you. Cats will literally starve themselves to death. And I mean that. They will actually kill themselves for like waiting for food, waiting for the food that they want. So if you have kibble, you need to make sure it is away. It is out of the house. It's in the freezer. You've got to get it away because of the fats that are sprayed on that. It's just so strong smelling. They know cats are smart. Who here has a cat that can like open pantries and, they know, right? I mean,
sock drawers
our fridge the other day, and I was like, "What are you doing, buddy?" He knew where the good stuff was. So that's where like, each cat is different. Out of all the 5 cats that I've personally had in my life, they've all been different, and they keep you on your toes, and they teach you a lot of patience in this journey. But I find it so much fun to see like they're so different that we can provide different things for their individual needs. And it doesn't have to be super expensive. There's ways that you can, pre-make your own food with some of the supplements and things like that. Use different brands that fit within your budget and rotate with variety and just try to find the things that work for your cat and just have fun with it. Look at it as like a challenge. Like, this is how I help my cat live their best life. So we have a free guide on our website, thenaturalpetdoctor.com. It's a simple guide to optimal health that actually has a raw food recipe for cats that's balanced. So if there are people here that want to get like started with that, there's other brands and also transitioning tips too. So just a little small tip for that, just to help people. So at thenaturalpetdoctor.com, under our natural pet care shop, you can download that for free. It covers dogs and cats, but there's definitely a cat section.
Wow. Maybe we'll find the link and drop it in the comments as well. what was I going to say? Oh, I wanted to just kind of double down on what you said, kind of in passing, though, that the first step really is for so many of us cat parents to pick up the all-day buffet. We can't just leave the trough kibble down and give them an option when we're realizing that we're dealing with literally an addiction for many cats. They don't recognize this as food. So picking up the all-day buffet is so important. Starting with those scheduled meal times, it's a lifestyle shift, and depending on your cat, that could be dramatic enough. But also, could you speak a little bit more about the fact that cats will literally starve themselves to death and why it is so important for our cats to eat, how often they should eat? If we've got a cat, like Julianne went through this, talking about that anxiety of, waiting for that sound of them eating. Let's talk about that just a little bit so people aren't like, you're going to eat your food or you're going to starve. Like our moms told us, that's not how it works with cats.
No, dogs can wait. So dogs are made very differently from cats. Like we always say, cats are truly not small dogs. They are very different. They are not small dogs. And so dogs that can go weeks without food, and yeah, that sucks. We don't want to do that, but they're not going to die. The difference with cats and their physiology is they can develop hepatic lipidosis. What that means is they start building up fat in their liver. And so if they go for a period of time, typically I always say don't go longer than 48 hours. Usually it's going to be 72 hours or a little bit longer, just so you're aware of that. It does take a little bit of time for this to kind of start kicking in and causing this health issue. But I always say if your cat's not eating within 2 days, this is where, yes, okay, sometimes we do have to give a little bit of, the food we don't want to feed, and that's okay. This is part of the journey, but cats can get really, really sick. And if they enter that hepatic lipidosis, what can happen is you'll see jaundice. You can see like yellowing of the whites of the sclera of the eyes. Their gums can turn yellow. Their liver values go really, really high. And they typically have to go into the hospital on IV fluids, get a feeding tube put in, and be fed through a feeding tube. So it's a very serious, very expensive, very stressful situation for everyone. So that's really, really important to keep in mind. It's not a reason to not do a transition because I'm always surprised, right? And I'm sure like you ladies here have been like, how long cats can actually go without going into that. Like for Tico, I was getting worried when he got really sick. I was like, we got a problem here. He hasn't eaten. And we did, all these tests. We did everything we could for him when he was sick. And he didn't develop hepatic lipidosis. And the amount of food he was eating for those first, 3-5 days was not a whole lot. So just keep that in the back of your mind when you're doing this. Don't hold out on the cats and just be like, I'm going to beat you at this. Like cats, once again, will starve themselves to death. So just keep it in the back of your mind as you're going through this process.
Yeah, but we also don't want to overly stress about it. I know this one sometimes when we put down food and everybody's fine and everybody's eating just fine, but then one of them wants to skip a meal or just is like, okay. Not hungry. I'm like, let them fast. If they want to fast, that's also part of self-selection is if they, it builds a bigger bond when we're paying this close attention to our cats. It can really build a better bond and making it a challenge, like you said, Dr. Katie, and using this as as an experiment on, getting to know your cat better. What kind of texture do they like? What kind of, proteins do they like? What kind of smells do they like? What kind of treats do we need to put on top? This is all good things, but also, don't freak out if they skip one meal. But do pay attention to their eating habits for sure.
One of the things I was going to say that I just thought of is the big thing with Tico and also with Kiwi, our senior picky cat, is if they don't eat, I have to look at what am I fulfilling their other needs? So typically what that means, and this is how I can also get them to eat, is playing with them. Have I played with them? Have I engaged? Remember, cats have a huge prey drive. What do? They play with their meals and then they devour them, right? And so, okay, if we're just putting down food and they're like, great, now I eat, have we really fulfilled that emotional health need? So if you're worried, try to engage and play with them to get them moving and get them excited. And then the reward is the food. So you're mimicking their natural environment. The other thing that has been really helpful for my cats that I learned from the beautiful Julianne is using self-selection with herbs. So having an herb garden down and using some of those herbs that are going to help stimulate the appetite and help them. So one of the things that we do for Kiwi, she loves eating catnip. Yes, I know it can make cats crazy, but she eats it and it helps stimulate her appetite. And then she goes and eats afterwards. So making sure that I have like herbs like that on hand. If there's anxiety, of course, the valerian works for so many cats, but following what Julianne and like Pam talk about with energy and herb selection, like this is where it's not just about like food, it's all about these other foundations of health that are so important. And once again, getting to know your cats and like really engaging with them, that's the fun part of being like a cat parent and really helping them and supporting them.
I love that. Julianne, I got to kick it to you. Where are you at right now?
Oh, I was really emotional. Katie was saying about, when they're not eating it and stuff. And that's what with Leo, it was, 2 years ago, it was heartbreaking. Like we weren't transitioning then. He was a raw fed cat. We didn't have Max or anything. I wasn't aware anything was going on at home. He didn't eat his breakfast. Then he didn't eat his dinner because he used to have like 3 or 4 meals a day. Didn't eat his tea. And I'm like, okay, something's not quite right. And to cut a long story short, we had to and fro with the vets. He had 3 nights or 4 nights overnight at the vets, and the first thing that he ate in nearly a full week was dry food, and I just burst into tears because I was so relieved he'd eaten and so mortified and upset and angry that he'd eaten dry food, and I firmly believe, as I know that you ladies will echo, that every cat is with us for a reason. Every cat teaches us and we learn from them if we are willing to be open to it. And I know that my journey with Leo isn't finished because, last week before, we were there again, and I was reaching out, getting support from you lovely ladies, trying to figure out what was going on. All the test results came back negative. All the vet stuff was fine. Thankfully, I had a better vet this time. He said to me, there's no signs of infection. We won't give antibiotics. I'm like, yes, there's no pancreatitis. There's no thyroid. We were testing for things and they weren't just throwing medication at him. But I'm heightened, I'm aware now. So every time I put a plate of food down, and of course, it's no wonder that baby Max is now having ripples of this same situation, And honestly, slightly off topic, I've got to take time to look at myself because both my boys now are showing me the same thing. They're both a bit iffy with food. They've not got the healthy appetites that I know that they have because I've seen them have it. And there is the lesson. It's not a supplement. It's not a food. It's like, okay, what am I doing? What am I bringing to this table for them? Because it's not just one of them as an off the cuff thing. They're both now showing this to me. So what's going on with me? And that's one thing we haven't really talked about is how our energy, our emotional state affects what's going on with them. So yes, transition them and try all the bits and pieces that we've shared. And like Katie said, it is different for every cat. But you've also got to remember, like, what's going on with you, Go on, Adrienne.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just having one of these light bulb moments because since Pooh Bear came into our lives, he came from a kind of a rough situation. And I really made it like my mission to deal with him as best we can. Since he came into our home, he and I have had a very strong bond. And I'm just now realizing, literally, I told Jay when we were transitioning to raw food, I told her, I'm just scared of raw food. I feel like you're going to kill our cats. And the one cat that acted like we were trying to kill him was Pooh Bear.
Yeah.
I'm having a chills up and down my spine of realizing how much our energy plays into.
Wow.
Holy cow.
Yeah. I mean, it's so true. I always say, and another way, like building the bond, you don't, when you're feeding a commercial frozen raw, you have to let it defrost. You have to like put it in a bowl. We're basically preparing each meal, right? So we put it in a bowl. We put that bowl in warm water. We stir it up so that it warms up to mouse temperature, as we call it. So that they like their food and they like the temperature. But that process. If it's an early morning and all I'm doing is like, why am I stepping on everything? Why are there crumbs all over the house? Why did, and really less like maybe a couple cats will eat, but the rest can feel that energy. But like a morning like this morning where we took yesterday off and I had a great night's sleep and we feel amazing and our energy is so good. And I'm preparing the food and the cats are just like, yes, please. It is. I mean, they always say like grandma's cooking was always the best, right? And that's because she made it with love. And there's behind that, right? Like when you make the food with love and with your energy, right, it actually is, you get the better results. That's so interesting.
Wow.
So it was your fault.
Yes.
Can I add one thing to that? It just kind of downloaded into my head just now. I love that. Did you know that you can actually change the frequency of the food by just blessing it?
Lovely.
So you talk about putting love in their food
Mm.
as you're preparing it. You can just say a blessing over it as well, and it literally will change the frequency of the food.
I am doing that
It's
first
better.
thing in the morning.
So
That is
amazing.
so. There's the for anyone, I love that because there's a really cool experiment. I think it was some Japanese scientist that did the
Matsuro
experiment.
Emoto.
Yes, with the
Yes,
water
with
and
the
like
water.
the change and like just your energy that you're
Yes.
putting into it.
Yeah.
Everyone here needs to look up that because it is phenomenal and it just
Mhm.
shows you the frequencies and
Power.
energy and how impactful it is for your own health, your cats, the collective whole. Who here stressed from like the past few years? Just
Yeah.
by raising our frequency, we affect everyone else through the ripple effects of the energy that's put out. And
Yeah.
so it's, I love that you brought that up, Pam.
And I don't know that I read this. I feel like I've been told this, so I don't know if it's true or not. But I believe that I heard that the whole blessing of the meals, like the way that, you know, families sit around and they say a blessing over their meals. It's now like it's a very kind of more like a religious thing than it is. But I don't think it started out that way. I believe. Well, I heard that it actually started out, blessing the meals actually started out exactly as that. Bless the meals, because putting that good energy into the food actually makes it more nutritious to your bodies.
Pam, everyone's asking,
Like, what do you say?
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I don't think there's any like specific words. I mean, you could just literally say, you know, I bless this food for my cat's highest and, you know, highest health and well-being. There is only goodness and love put into this food for their happiness and long life. I mean, there is no right or wrong how you want to say that. If you want to, you know, call in your angels, if you want to call in, you know, source or God and say, thank you for blessing this food. I mean, there's no right or wrong. It's all about your intention of putting love and blessing into that food. It's the energy.
And you know what? That's fascinating. And I'm going to do that because already I realize that when I'm prepping food, I'm like, God, I hope they eat it. That's what I'm doing, right? As I'm prepping it, I'm like, God, I hope
putting that anxiety already into it.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this is amazing. I know we are over time already, but there was one question I saw fly by, and Dr. Katie, I wanted to kind of kick it to you because diabetes is such an epidemic right now.
Yes, I think I saw that one. Yes.
I know you're referring to. No.
It was about fixing diabetes, I think, with raw food.
Yes,
is that it?
It was up here. Sorry, guys, just 1 second.
Was there a specific question or just fixing diabetes? Because she can go.
No, it was a cat that's on insulin twice a day. I'm wondering about. Here we go. Stephanie, one of my boys is diabetic, insulin twice a day, and I don't know if there is any commercial raw food that would be appropriate for him. What are your thoughts on?
Okay, cats are not small dogs. So cats are typically like type 2 diabetics. So they're like the majority of people who develop diabetes later on in life. You can reverse that with food and supporting the body. So we reverse diabetes all the time in our cat patients through feeding a species appropriate diet. So Stephanie, everything that we talked about today, of course, you know, talk to your veterinarian if you can. I understand a lot of vets will not be for feeding this food, but if you go slow, support the body like what we talked about, a lot of times what you'll find is that you'll have to monitor the blood sugar more closely, because as you start regulating that better, you typically need less insulin. So you want to just be careful about the blood sugar dropping too low and being aware of that. So that's one of the things that can be the hardest, but you can 100% reverse diabetes by transitioning over to a less processed or raw food diet. So if you're using one of the brands that we recommend that are the commercial pre-made options, there's so many like Small Batch, Darwin's, Fetching Foods. There's Smalls. There's a lot of them out there that are really great companies. Just go slow. Make sure you're letting your veterinarian know. And I would get them, if you're not able to check the blood sugar levels at home, make sure that you're taking them in routinely. I would start with at least weekly to get that check, that blood glucose check, to make sure that you're not giving too much insulin. And 100% cats can be reversed, or at least significantly minimize the amount of insulin that's required. We do it all the time.
I love
We
that.
did that with Pickle.
Go ahead, Julia.
Sorry, yeah, we did that with Pickle. She was diabetic because we free-fed dry food and we were injecting twice a day. And as soon as I got her onto raw, her diabetes stabilized. We used something called type regulation protocol. So we basically measured her amount of insulin and her blood glucose level at home and gave her insulin dependent on what her blood glucose was, because we didn't manage to do it at the vets very successfully. So as Bob's put, home blood glucose testing is a must, but it's not for everyone. But if you can, it's great.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got her off insulin a couple of times. She'd been too poorly for too long to get her off it completely, but absolutely transitioning, even bringing in raw, half and half, some form of raw food diet for diabetic cats is an absolute must. It makes such a big difference. It changed our world. Her Pickle's diabetes was so much more manageable. She was on like half a unit once a day at one point. It was such a big difference. It's a game changer for a diabetic cat. Absolutely.
I love that.
Yeah.
This is really a great segue into everyone, just kind of letting everyone know where they can find all of you. I want to just mention real quick, Dr. Katie, you mentioned Smalls. For people that are scared of raw, like I was initially, Smalls is actually that sweet spot between processed food and fully raw food. It's a fresh, gently cooked diet. We've got a link for it, I think, in the description of
It should be
this.
If
But
it's not,
that's a
DM
great
us, we'll
place.
send it to you.
Great place to start. I've eaten it myself. It's quite delicious. But Dr. Katie, you were mentioning that sometimes we can be dealing with, kind of a little bit of a angsty conversation with our veterinarians, and we've got a diabetic cat that is, switching it to a raw diet can be, they might feel a little reluctant about that, or veterinarians might feel reluctant. I want to pitch your course that you are offering. I think it's one of the most empowering things I've ever seen a veterinarian do. And that link should also be in the description. So tell everybody a little bit where they can find you, where they can see if they might be a good fit for this course that is really empowering and helps us better understand our cats and dogs, and better empower us to have really productive conversations with our veterinarians.
Yeah. So you can find more information at Dr. Katie Woodley, the natural pet doctor.com. And what we're doing is we have a lifetime program for pet parents. So it covers dogs and cats, and it covers the foundations of holistic health. So we go deep into, we have an entire gut health nutrition module that teaches you how and why nutrition is so important. And also we do weekly Q&As where you can ask questions. So my cat's doing this, how would I go about this? Or if there's, you're making changes and something comes up, being able to get guidance from a holistic vet. We also teach people how to talk to your veterinarian, because there's not enough holistic vets out there in this world, unfortunately. And having that conversation is very scary for a lot of pet parents. And so that course helps guide you. What we're doing is we're doing like free interviews with pet parents to make sure that program fits best for you. We're also starting a better gut health 6-week intensive in October. We have a few more slots left. So just go through the link if you're interested in learning more or finding out which program would be best suited for you and your pets, because hearing your concerns, seeing if we can possibly help you is what the purpose of those calls are, to get you the results that you need and you want for your cats. So I love connecting with pet parents just to find what I can help with, if possibly can help with anything. And so definitely check that out, because we're getting some amazing results in that program and helping people feel more confident to help get their cats onto, species appropriate diets, resolve chronic health conditions, and also set them up for optimal health so that they can live to be 25 years old.
Or 30.
Or 30. Yeah. How about 35?
Naturalpetdoctor.com is the website. You're also on Instagram, Facebook.
Yeah, YouTube channel also. Yeah, we do a lot of free content. We're also doing, if you have a dog coming up, it's for dogs, but there's a raw dog food summit. A lot of those principles apply to cats, and it is all free information. Dr. Judy Morgan is a speaker on that, but there's a lot of really good talks on there. So especially if you also have a dog, I highly recommend checking that out. We put out some posts today on our social media. So just head over to the Natural Pet Doctor, or just send a message or an email to us. We'll make sure that you get those links.
Love it.
Awesome.
Beautiful Pam Roussel with Perfectly Holistic. Where can people stalk you? Awesome tools in their toolkit.
Absolutely. Perfectlyholistic.com is my website. And then the shop.perfectlyholistic.com is our store that's dedicated to cats. And there are numerous services in there, as well as products and stuff. I am on Instagram. We're on Facebook, YouTube. And I was also just gonna say, if for some people are asking or just want to know like what raw brands that I'm currently using or I have used in the past that I like, they're currently using small batch frozen and Vital Essentials freeze dried. I have had Vital Essentials raw before, and that's excellent. And then Steve's Real Food makes Quest, which is a cat formula. So those are just some ideas, and Primal is also a really good one too. So, and then I've used Fetching Foods in the past, and I know you guys have used Fetching Foods as well. There's Darwin's, there's Steve's. There's just a lot of really good options out there.
Savage Cat is
Savage Cat.
That's also a good one. I do want to say to everyone, it is Perfectly Holistic, PURRR. BeckleyHolistic.com.
And Julianne's got a great idea. I just saw you switch up your name a little bit. We should start putting your actual handles, I guess, in the little box. Julianne, where can people follow along with your journey as well and get your amazing herb gardens?
Yes, lovely. Thank you. So www.naturallycats.co.uk. Everything's now under the one website, thank goodness. So the shop's there, my services are there. So I primarily offer cat chakra cleanse and rebalance sessions and cat communication sessions, and also herbal help. So if you're looking to try remedies, it's not supplements, it's about using essential oils and herbs with your cat. Let me know, because there's a session where you can book in and we basically have a talk about your cat and I share with you what remedies to use. And the other two obviously are linked with the energy work that we've talked about. I'm on Facebook and Instagram, getting more and more onto YouTube now as well. And if you've got any questions about your cat or energy related, get in touch and let me know. And I think it's a great suggestion, Pam, about brands that you would recommend. So because obviously I'm in the UK, across the pond. So I would recommend ones that we've used and we currently use is Perform. So PURRFORM, Perform. They are probably the most expensive, but the most high quality. We've also used Nutriment. I've tried Bella and Duke's and Hug Pet Food as well. So, see what you like, see what your cat likes. Some are more ground than others. Nutriment particularly has got salmon oil and spirulina in. So, if you're using that alongside self-selection, your cat may not be too keen on it. The others are, meat, bone and offal. So, it depends what you fancy trying. So, yeah, that's me. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Dr. Katie Woodley is dropping links for the link for the interview if you want to see if you're a fit for her course, and the link for the
free guide. That's the free guide that has brands also. So a lot of the brands that were just mentioned are in there. And then also most of the tips that we talked about today for transitioning food are in there too. So it covers both dogs and cats. And there's a raw food recipe. So if you're into DIYing it for your cats, that's balanced that you can also make.
I love this so much. We're so grateful to each one of you for your beautiful time and experience and perspective today. So grateful for all of you that have joined us. I feel like this is the most exciting, like the learn, share, grow.
Yeah. Like
all getting together and learning from each other and sharing and growing together as a community. This is just, I got butterflies and tinglies,
Yes. So if any of you guys have any questions about transitioning your cats to a better diet, those are all the places that you guys can find everyone and us. Of course, you're here on our pages, so you can reach out to us as well. And thank you guys so much. Happy Monday. I wish
Which
you guys.
Green Juju do we use? Hold on one second. So Green Juju makes a bunch of the freeze dried. We use their bison, their salmon, their beef right now. And they're just they come in like little bags.
Zorro likes bison, Friday and Twist like beef.
They like salmon too.
And then we also use Pooh Bear likes the Stella and Chewy chicken.
The Vital
I love the way you're both doing this when you're talking.
The Vital Essential mini rabbit nibs are not sprinkleable.
No, but they have like, we'll use the patty, the like bigger bars, and patty you can sprinkle in, and then also the Vital Essentials like freeze dried organs, so that the hearts my cats love. So
nice.
Those are really, really good. Yeah. So Vital Essentials is another great brand to try too. So
We can't get them in the UK. That's really upsetting as well. They're a very good brand. I've got them from Dr. Judy. So you can get them from Dr. Judy Morgan's site. You've got to pay quite a lot for postage. If you're going to put an order in, I would really recommend you order a lot. So I've ordered the kiwi mussels that you've mentioned, Katie, with the green lip mussels, the whole ones, and the ones with lamb, the Vital Essential rabbit things. But here in the UK for treats, I use the Cosma brand, so you can get them from Zoo Plus, ZOOPLUS, Cosma, Thrive, and Wolf and something, but all on Zoo Plus are all the freeze-dried options that I would recommend.
And if you like doing it yourself, just get a dehydrator. Or you can also do it in your oven. You just have to do it at a really low temperature for a very long time. But you can find like directions online. So if you have a local butcher, once again, support those farmers that are like doing the right things with their animals and supporting regenerative farming, all those things.
Nice.
Support them. And you can also do it yourself if you can't find like a brand, and it'll be cheaper long term too. So
DIY freeze-dried, love it.
Yeah.
You ladies
are dehydrated, I guess. Technically, it's not freeze.
Yeah, I think we've got a recipe on our YouTube channel of those basically just taking thin slices of chicken breast and making them in a little kitty bite size, putting them on a pan in the oven, and then it does take quite a while.
Yeah, it's a long time. So,
but worth it.
Winter's coming here, so it's a perfect time to kind of make your house a little warmer, right?
Exactly.
Maybe not when it's 115 degrees outside, but winter is coming. So
yes,
fall's gonna be here this week.
I know.
Oh my God,
I'm so excited about it.
Thank you guys all so much.
Yes,
can't wait for next time already. Thank you everyone who joined us. And again, so many of the links that we talked about are in the comments here. If you're watching this later, I just go through and check those out.
And in the description as well.
Yes.
And we will see you guys. Adrian and I will be back for Q&A Wednesday this Wednesday. It may just be the last Q&A for a while. So don't miss this Wednesday. We will see you guys soon, and have a wonderful and blessed, beautiful week.
Happy Monday, guys. Thank you guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye, y'all.